Hello, and welcome to World of Warbirds. I'm Brian Pierce. Hello, Warbirders. So today's episode is very much a continuation of my Hawker Stormbirds series that started with the hurricane, continued to the short-lived tornado, and then to the Typhoon. These Hawker fighters are a beautiful example of high-speed aviation evolution in action. Not only were technologies rapidly changing, but the no-nonsense proving ground of World War II combat just did not suffer weakness. If there was a problem with these aircraft, it would rapidly become evident and need to be corrected in one way or another, or the type would just not survive. Now, the Typhoon was nothing to sneeze at, and the Tiffy would kick butt all over Europe, especially in the ground attack role. But there were definitely things about the Typhoon that were bothersome. The first was the wing. The Tiffy had a fat, thick wing that produced too much drag and reduced performance. Second, the big radiator scoop looked cool and all, but think of it. That's a big chunk of something hanging out there in the slipstream, causing drag. And if that could be cleaned up, for sure performance would improve. Also, the Tiffy had an annoying high-frequency vibration problem with the engine, and an even more annoying habit of losing its tail in flight, killing probably 25 of its own pilots in the process. So yeah, the perfectionists over at Hawker had some things that they wanted to fix. In order to do this, authorization was obtained from the Air Ministry in November 1941, to build two prototypes of what they called the Typhoon II. In February 1942, these were renamed to Tempest. Now, if you recall from the Typhoon video, the Air Ministry had learned that hedging your bets on engines was a good tactic. There had been problems with the Rolls-Royce Vulture engine, and so they were able to cancel the Hawker Tornado, but continue on with the Napier Sabre-powered Typhoon. So in this case, they went a little hog wild. The Tempest Mark I was equipped with the Napier Sabre Mark IV engine and was to have wing-mounted radiators instead of the chin scoop. The Tempest Mark II had the Bristol Centaurus Mark IV engine. The Tempest Mark III was equipped with the Rolls-Royce Griffon 85 engine. The Tempest Mark IV was planned to be equipped with a Griffon 61 engine. The Tempest Mark V was equipped with the Napier Sabre Mark II engine. If you're wondering if you need to get some paper to make notes because all these marks are getting confusing, don't worry. Things will get simplified soon, and so I promise there will not be a quiz at the end of this. Firstly, let's get rid of a few of these pesky prototypes to make things easier. The Mark I with the wing radiators instead of the chin scoop was aerodynamically clean and thus very fast, but problems with making those radiators work with the engine caused it to be cancelled. The Mark II with the Bristol Centaurus had so many delays that it wasn't ready for war service, so forget about it for now. We'll get back to it later. The Tempest Mark III and IV were to be equipped with the Rolls-Royce Griffon engine, but those were prioritized to the Spitfire, so the Mark III and IV were cancelled. And that left the Mark V with the Napier Sabre Mark II engine. It, and all the other prototypes, had a new, thinner wing. This wing was a laminar-flow design, was thinner overall, and with the maximum thickness being moved aft by 7%. The wing surface was flush riveted to be extra smooth and sleek. Now, the old Typhoon's wings had been fairly packed with fuel tanks and guns and ammo. With less space in these more svelte and sexy wings, stuff needed to be moved around. The 4 20mm Hispano cannon and the 800 rounds of ammunition to serve them needed to stay, but some fuel tanks needed to move. A new tank was installed between the cockpit and the engine, and 2 others were installed between the spars of the wings on either side of the center section. It started off with the Typhoon's old framed canopy and car-style door, but the new bubble canopy was quickly swapped in. A bigger tail unit was added to improve directional stability due to the longer nose, which was due to that extra fuel tank that I mentioned. In fact, the whole tail had been redesigned and strengthened to get rid of that tail falling off issue that had plagued the Tiffy. Engine vibration was solved with new rubber mounts and a 4-bladed propeller. Tempest Mark V prototype HM595 took to the sky on its maiden flight with Philip Lucas at the controls on the 2nd of September 1942. It was reported as a maneuverable and pleasant aircraft to fly with no major handling faults. The Air Ministry ordered 300. In early 1944, Tempest-equipped squadrons began raising hell over Europe in fighter sweeps, called Rangers, penetrating deep into enemy territory, bombing and strafing airfields, radar sites, shooting up vehicles and coastal shipping, and hitting launch sites for the V-1 flying bombs. Tempest developed a bit of a specialty in dealing with these menacing drone aircraft. With external drop tanks, Tempests would be stationed on patrols of up to 4.5 hours off the southern coast of England. These must have been boring as hell until getting a call from coastal radar controllers telling the pilots of an approaching doodlebug. Then the race was on. The Tempest's great low-altitude speed was ideal for chasing down V-1s and hitting them with cannon, or, rarely, tipping them over with a wingtip. Tempest squadrons were credited with destroying 638 of the 1,846 V-1s which were destroyed by aircraft. As the threat of the V-1s died down, Tempest squadrons were moved forward to bases on the continent where they tangled with and proved worthy opponents to the Luftwaffe's Bf-109G and FW-190 fighters, while also destroying many ground vehicles, trains, etc. In 1945, a Tempest was the first to shoot down a Heinkel HE-162 jet-powered Volksjäger. A Tempest was also the first to run into the Dornier 335 file. Tempests held their own even against the Messerschmitt Me-262 jets. A Me-262 pilot said of the Tempest, open quotes, "Our most dangerous opponent was the British Hawker Tempest. Extremely fast at low altitudes, highly maneuverable, and heavily armed," close quotes. One technique to deal with the 262 was the rat scramble. When a 262 was reported in the area, Tempests would take off and head straight to the 262's home airbase to hit the 262s when they were coming in for a landing, low and slow. This worked well until flak lanes were established to protect the vulnerable jets as they came in. Tempest served right up until the end of the war and after, holding the line until the new jets arrived. For many RAF pilots, the Tempest was their last piston banger before becoming a jet jockey. I told you back in the prototype section to forget about the Mark II with the Centaurus engine for later. Well, it is now later. The Centaurus was an 18-cylinder air-cooled radial engine, and so because of this very round engine shape, the Mark II has a distinctive nose when compared to her sisters. It, in fact, looks like an FW-190. Supposedly this is not incidental, and there was a little copying that went on from a captured 190. The first Tempest II with this engine flew in June 1943. Early on, these radial-powered Tempests had problems with engine vibrations. Changes were made to the engine mounts, and experiments were done with various propeller blade configurations, from 4 blades to 5 blades, and then back to 4. Other problems such as engine overheating, poor lubrication, exhaust malfunctions, and reduction gear seizures all delayed production, so that the Tempest II never saw combat but served post-war. Some were transferred from the RAF to the Indian Air Force and the Pakistani Air Force, where they would fly until the 1950s. The Tempest is well represented by survivors. Tempest II, serial number MW763, was built in 1945, and in 1948 was one of those aircraft transferred to the Indian Air Force. In 1989, it made its way back to England, where it began a very long restoration process and finally took to the air in October 2023. Based at Sywell Aerodrome in Northampton, it represents the only airworthy Tempest in the world right now, including one at KF Aerospace Kelowna, Canada, 2 in Texas, 1 in restoration by Kermit Weeks in Florida, and 1 being worked on by the Hawker Typhoon Preservation Group in the UK. All are being prepped to fly again, though each is at a different stage in restoration. Several can be seen in static displays. PR536 is preserved at the Royal Air Force Museum, Cosford, while NV778 is suspended in display at the RAF Museum, Hendon, London. MW758 is on display at South Wales Aviation Museum, Wales. Over in India, MW848 is showcased at the Indian Air Force Museum, New Delhi. These static aircraft may not fly again, but their historical presence in museums ensures the Tempest legacy lives on. And there is one more bird to come in my Stormbird series. Can you guess? If you've got feedback, leave me a comment. If you enjoyed this video, please drop me a super thanks or just like and subscribe and hit the bell. It's really appreciated. Until next time.